Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be making in Mixer what you're seeing on screen. This is going to be kind of like a destroyed wall, or the wall that's been abandoned there. It has several layers. You can see like the regular plaster painted layer, then underneath you're going to have the rough concrete, then a little bit of rebarb. I think that's how it's pronounced, whatever the structural thing that they use to make these big buildings, a little graffiti, and you're gonna see me doing a lot of stuff with noise and decals. As always, the best way to support me is to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment with your suggestions, and let me know what kind of other materials you'd like to see me do here in the channel. Now, let's get started. I'm gonna get rid of all of this and we'll start from scratch. Alright, so what I did here is we have a clean project so we can start from scratch. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a solid layer. First, I like to focus on creating the masks for all the layers, and then we'll add the Megascan surfaces. The other thing that you'll see me doing is I'm going to be working from top down, so from the top layer to the bottom layer of the wall. The reason for this is because I want to see which parts are going to be broken and what's going to be shown before I actually build the layers of the wall. You may want to do it in reverse, that's fine. That's just the way I do it. So we'll add our solid layer and a mask stack. Over here we just need a purlin noise. And right now the purlin noise is not doing anything, so I need to increase my threshold. I'm gonna significantly increase the threshold because that's going to be the top layer. So I'd say let's go all the way to 1. We can switch that later if we need to. But for now, we'll just leave it at that. And I like to look at my mask first. I'm just going to go here and we're going to start playing with this. So we want a big chunk of wall that's taking out. Now, this is usually not a tiling texture, not something that I would use for a tiling wall. What I would use is I would use this for a particular asset. So if I'm making one wall, I would probably throw this one in. So one of the ways that you could do it is by actually painting your mask, but I find that doing it procedurally, it gives me much more detail without that much work, and it does look a lot better. So let's do here, let's lower the frequency, and we're going to be using these because we haven't used them before in my other videos. So I'm just going to bring the octaves all the way to 8. Linearity, you're going to see how that noise moves around, which is pretty fun. Persistence, this is going to give you kind of like the sharpness of that, which we do need a little bit. And let me see if I can bring that frequency around here. I think this will give us some nice chunks. And now we have our amplitude. The amplitude is something that we need to look at over here. And right now this is looking very, very noisy. So let's just mess with our seeds. And let's kind of leave it at that. Linearity, maybe like this. See, when you move the persistence, it looks a lot blurrier. So that's why I like to keep the persistence at a certain level, maybe around here. I think this should be fine. I know this looks very destroyed, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a brightness and contrast layer. So these brightness and contrast, you're going to see that it actually brings up all these destructions. So this is the perfect note to use for this kind of material that we're building, because without it, we just have a lot of noise, and we could increase the amplitude all the way up. So I'm just going to do a value here, 2.3. But if we increase amplitude this way, you're going to see that it doesn't add much to it. It's very narrow around these areas, and even if I play with the seed, it won't change much. So I'm just going to leave it at 2.3, and instead I'm going to play with the brightness, and this is going to give me this side right here. And as you can see, this looks like a destroyed wall already. If we mess with the seeds, we can get some variations. I actually like this is the perfect variation for this kind of wall, and we can mess with that later. There's other things that we can play here, like the contrast. So as you can see, the contrast is going to be removing that blurriness that it has around here. That's what the contrast does. It's kind of like sharpening that up. So the contrast is good to, if you're creating something like this, kind of like remove the in-betweens, because we're going to be adding other layers here. I know this looks very steep, but we are going to be adding other layers here. So let's just keep playing with this. Maybe it looks very intense. So I'll probably go back and play with the, now the octaves are fine. Persistence, I think I leave the persistence at 0.4. That looks fair. And again, I know this looks as it's a big chunk, but we're going to be building layers underneath that. So we got our first layer. Let's add another solid. So this solid is going to go underneath, and we're going to be playing with the threshold as well. Just going to bring it up a little bit. And now that I have this layer like this, I may want to play with my contrast a little bit better, and that way, as you can see, it takes out some of that noise and makes it more like a piece of concrete wall just came out. See, this is kind of the effect that we are trying to get to, and that's why we can just use this brightness control and the contrast just to get that effect, because otherwise it will look very noisy all around. All right, so this is also going to be having a mask, because this is going to be our second layer. So this wall is going to be one of those concrete walls. It's not going to be a brick wall. It's those concrete walls that you see on big old buildings that have like different layers of concrete, and then there's like rebarb underneath. That's what we're trying to go with here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to add another mask stack. I'm going to play with another purling noise. And again, it's going to look like that. Let's just get into our mask preferably. Move the seed around. Just diminish the frequency. And increase the octaves. Linearity, like we did before. And persistence to give this some sharpness. Now we can, whoops, that actually looks great. This hole here looks great. And if we can see, yep, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So this will be my secondary concrete layer, and there's going to be kind of like a background layer to this. But I think this is very, very cool. And we're just going to increase that threshold up. Now we do have a problem here that it's actually going through this, so we can add another mask that will allow us to clean that. But before we do that, I'm just going to leave it around here. We could always mask that a little bit later until we build our final layer. So I think I'm good here. Another thing that we can add is we go into the mask and we could add a brightness contrast and see where that take us. Let me see, if I increase the brightness, this will just go up. So see, this is another way that you can bring this layer up instead of increasing the threshold. So you can keep your threshold kind of low and you can just change your brightness to it. There you go. We have some contrast that we can change here. I'm actually going to leave it at that. And let's play with the amplitude. We haven't really played with amplitude on this one. Okay. So we have the plaster wall, then we have the underneath concrete wall, which is usually the non-painted part, and then we'll have some rebarb or those kind of like orange beams that you see sometimes in constructions. I think that's the name in English. So I'm just going to add that from my atlas, and I'm just going to click here. You can see I've already downloaded some, so I'm just going to use this one. And we're going to diminish that tiling. Let's see how it looks. This one. Let's try 2. I think 2 is fine. So what we have is if we do it this way, then we pretty much will have everything blocked out. I actually want to put it underneath because this will be like our plaster layer. This will be our concrete layer. Whoops. And let's put it underneath the concrete layer. So the way that's going to look right now, this doesn't have any mask. And the thing is, it's actually not looking that great. So what we need to do is I'm actually going to copy this mask. And I'm going to add a mask stack here. And we're going to paste this mask here. And the thing that we're going to do is we're going to get the invert. And there you go. So this will help us with the mask. And I don't want these looking kind of like it fades out into it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go. Now that I look at it in this angle, I think I need to increase my persistence or my linearity this way. Just so I get a little bit more grit. All right. Now what we're gonna do to fade this out is actually we're gonna go into this and we're gonna open our brightness and contrast. And let me see, I'll just leave it where it was and increase the contrast by a lot. So if we look at our mask, that's what it's doing. We may have to paint the mask a little bit so it doesn't look like it's fading into the other textures, because one of the things that I'll also like to do is this may be what's interfering with your texture. So right now it's wrapped to underlying. That means that's going to actually wrap to the whole layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to do it from below. Okay. Now it looks a lot sharper, it looks a lot better, and let's just push it down a little bit. And now I can see more of these foundation parts. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm actually going to mask it manually over here, adding a paint mask. And we're going to be using a circular brush, let's say of a size of 10. And I'm not going to use a soft brush, I'm going to use a hard brush just to get rid of this. And just FYI, it may be a little bit slow. It's actually a tad slow over here, just so you be aware of that. Okay, so what you saw me doing there is I just disable this paint mask just to see what's going on, and I play with a little bit of the contrast here just so it wasn't as noisy. So I'm gonna go back here and I'm going to erase the mask around this parts. And I usually, when I'm doing masks like this painted by hand, I'm not super careful. I just go this way and then I go and erase it by hand if I need to. So let's just paint some mask here. I'm gonna go with a size of 5. Alright, I actually kind of like that it's bent in some of the parts, because it really gives that kind of sense of it's been a wall that's probably the concrete move a little bit. Alright, that is the end of this video. I just wanted to show you how you can use noise and several procedural properties here in Mixer so you can achieve a destructible wall, but we're not done yet. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to add more decals to make this wall a little bit more interesting, and we'll be finishing the whole asset. Please subscribe to the channel, leave me a like, leave me your comments with your suggestions for tutorials, what other materials you want to see here on the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.